Hi, Ramona. Welcome. So good to see you.
Hello, thanks for inviting me.
We loved your article, your whole article, um, Literacy and Justice for All at Cox Campus. I mean, first of all, it's so you. Every time we've talked and that slogan comes up and it just snaps. Um, and so to be able to share that with educators everywhere and now to have an interview where they can get to know you better, we're just thrilled. So thank you for being here.
Absolutely, my pleasure. The slogan "Literacy and Justice for All" encapsulates all I hope to accomplish as an educator.
And all of us who know you know that you live by that. Absolutely. Now, for people who have read the article, there are three entities connected with this important work. There's the Atlanta Speech School, and then the Rollins Center for Language and Literacy, and then Cox Campus. So just for people who are thinking, I may want to come down there someday and actually see this, explain to them what the three different organizations are and how they all are together.
Absolutely. So the Atlanta Speech School was founded in 1938. So they're an 85-year plus institution,
Right.
and the backstory behind it is beautiful. It was a mother who was seeking to support her child who was a diverse learner,
Yep.
and long story short, she learned alongside those that were teaching him and wanted to afford the opportunity to more students. And
Wow.
thus the Atlanta Speech School was founded. We have multiple schools within the Atlanta Speech School that
Hmm.
serve students who are deaf and hard of hearing, students with dyslexia, and other, language-based uh, issues or concerns, learning
Yes.
styles.
Yes.
Um, so they are the parent, so to speak.
Yeah.
The Atlanta Speech School is.
Yeah.
It is a private school funded by philanthropic dollars as well as families.
Hmm.
Um, and about 20 years ago, the Rollins Center was created to be the professional development arm, sort of the delivery method to take some of the best practices and lessons learned from the Atlanta Speech School
Yeah.
and make it available to schools and districts. Around the state, and ultimately the bigger goal is around the country.
Right.
um, and then the Cox Foundation came alongside the Rollins Center
Hmm.
and charged us with creating Cox Campus, which is our online learning delivery system.
Right.
So the three make up and support the mission of literacy and justice for all in their respective capacities.
Thank you. Wonderfully put. Now, it's actually in the closing paragraph of your article, but it just sticks with me. And it could have been the first thing you wrote at the top of the article. It's probably wonderful that it's kind of the closing crescendo. But you said, and you wrote this before the election and everything that's played out since. In an information-powered society, literacy is the civil rights issue of our time.
Mhm.
Powerful, powerful statement. Talk more about that.
So I wish I could claim the original rights to that. And oh gosh, I'm gonna forget his name. Oh, there, I went blank as soon as I
It's
thought
okay.
about it. But
It'll
it's
come to
it's
you.
been said in these circles, and it's part of um, what gives us purpose
Hmm.
in making sure that teachers are equipped with evidence-based practices,
Yes.
um, because we're in an information age and we are inundated with information. And it's even more critical to establish a solid literacy foundation during this time,
Yeah.
because kids need not only to be able to read, but they need to be able to think critically as consumers
Yes.
of what they read, in order to make decisions that impact their personal lives, their families, their communities, and the country.
Yes. And it's so true. And even, as a veteran educator, I look at younger educators and how they consume all their information. And, they're not going to the corner store to pick up a newspaper anymore. Everything's online. And it
Mhm.
comes at us so fast and furious that if you don't practice those skills of evaluating what you're hearing and reading and processing, it's easy to get influenced by a lot of different influencers out there who aren't always very transparent about what their agenda is.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely
Yes.
seeing that with the new administration in Washington and the new Congress and so much that even on social media is coming across every day that it's just so much coming at me that keeping my wits about me and thinking about what I'm consuming, just like, your diet of what you eat every day, what you
Mhm.
consume for information starts to impact how you think and how you go about your business. So it's so important.
Yes, and it's a very timely topic and a very pressing issue to develop that deep reading brain where you're able to not simply digest headlines,
Right.
um, but taking us back way in the day when there were things called microfiche that
Yes.
some of our audience may or may not remember.
Yep.
We had to cite our sources.
Yes.
These days, if it's on the internet, it's fair game,
Right.
um, and so it's I think of it globally, but also taking it to a personal level.
Hmm.
I had put myself on a very strict diet of news of what
Yes.
I consumed, and but I still want to be aware,
Right.
and that's important. So, um, cultivating sources that I know have a reputation of staying unbiased as much as possible because human bias comes in,
Yeah.
um, but giving just the news rather than creating a form of clickbait in order to
Yes.
get more traffic.
Exactly.
And it's a skill, and I'm grateful that I had teachers that took me through that process.
Yes.
um, yeah, but before I even got there, I had to be able to lift the words off of the page.
Right. It's so
Yeah.
true. I'm thinking back to you're talking about the Atlanta Speech School and the founder and being a parent themselves. Do you find in this work, even with information literacy, 21st century literacy skills, do you find that even though we're working with children or with teachers, that it becomes a mission that involves families and parents and the greater community? I mean, there's no real wall that stops us at the schoolhouse door, for lack of a better image. Do parents get involved in this? Does it become a matter where we're educating more than just children or just professional development for teachers?
Yes, so Cox Campus provides reading courses for
Right.
all stakeholders.
Yeah.
It's free for all,
Yeah.
so that's available. But we also, as I mentioned in the article, have partnerships with healthcare providers
Yes.
in an effort to support prenatal through third grade
Right.
in developing the deep reading brain. And
Yeah.
so that's how we pull in the larger community,
Okay.
because healthcare, of course, is a common point of contact for us all.
Yes.
And that's a great way for parents to begin thinking about what it takes to develop a child who is able to read, who is a critical thinker and consumer of the
Yeah.
information, and even, creator
Yeah.
of the information. We often think about the consumption side, but the the ultimate goal is what can you create and contribute to the world. And so it's a two-sided coin.
It's such a powerful statement that uh, students come into school today seeing themselves as creators, and in their
Mhm.
personal lives they are. And so our orientation to the students that are coming into our schools, we need to be able to adopt that orientation. It's a different world, and it's wonderful the Cox campus is ahead of that and helping lead that reset on how all of us as educators think, how parents parent, and certainly, as you're saying, how kids become consumers and creators. It's important work. You did
Yes.
say early on in the article that, your first 6 years in the classroom, you were in a great district, like one of the well positioned districts in the state, and you didn't know how good you had it for professional development. And then
Yes.
you went to a neighboring district for 3 years, and you were really struck with the realization that not all PD is the same. Can you
Hmm.
talk a little about that and how Cox Campus addresses that beyond district boundaries?
Yes. So I believe that it levels it, we like to say it breaks down the paywall. Professional development is an 18 to 20 billion dollar industry.
Right.
Just let that sink in for a moment.
It's
And then
huge.
understanding that our zip code dictates what resources are available because
Yeah.
we are a tax driven system.
Yep.
Um, and so that means that not all zip codes, neighborhoods, homes are created equally. Well,
No.
with Cox Campus, with the information being backed by science, supported by subject matter experts
Hmm.
in the industry,
Yep.
with its development, and it also being free forever, we like to
Right.
say,
Right.
um, it levels the playing field so that those teachers who are seeking the knowledge, because every teacher, I like to believe, that enters a classroom and interacts with a child has that child's highest good in mind. And learning to read is one of those.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's there for teachers to design their own professional development, um, with support not only through content, but resources that are adaptable for them and portable into the classroom.
Yeah.
Um, we also have where, let's say, you and I wanted to create a group on Cox Campus with our colleagues
Yeah.
to study, let's say, around developing oral language
Yeah.
in better in our schools, classrooms, and communities.
Yeah.
We could all take the course
Yeah.
and talk about the implementation, help each other through the planning and the implementation and receive feedback on the courses simply by requesting a group be set up on Cox Campus. Another way that I've encouraged partners that I work with on the ground support is for them to take bite-sized portions of the course that address a specific problem of practice,
Yeah.
for them to support teachers in their knowledge around that area, and
Okay.
then set up structures where they're able to then take it to the classroom, practice it with coaching and peer support. So it's Cox Campus is adaptable.
Ah,
It's affordable, of course, and it's actionable.
yeah.
So it really presents a leveled playing field and many possibilities for transferring that knowledge to practice.
That's fantastic. And I know you were mentioning this in the article about creating professional learning networks across
Hmm.
geography. And even universities can use the platform for with pre-service teachers. But let me dig a little deeper because you just piqued my curiosity there.
Hmm.
So if I'm an elementary teacher and wanting to sharpen my reading skills and instruction in a certain way, I can find content on Cox Campus and identify specific chunks of content and customize professional learning so that even though I may have basic certifications to teach second grade and that comes with some understanding that I'm proficient in teaching reading, I can target things that I want to strengthen, learn on Cox Campus, and then bring those targeted chunks of learning into my classroom so I can practice and coach and really make myself feel like I'm more proficient as an instructor.
Yes, yes. So, um, oral language is pretty much the foundation of all that we do. And
Yeah.
so, in total, it is a 4 hour course.
Okay.
So let's say, I wanted to chunk that learning.
Yes.
I could go it now. It takes you through like most modules. You have to complete
Of
modules one,
course.
2, and 3 or whatnot.
Of
It's
course.
sequential in the completion process so that the learning's not fragmented. But
Yes.
let's say lesson 4 most applies to my classroom.
Right.
I could, within community, focus on carrying those practices
Yeah.
into my classroom.
Excellent. If and this is another issue in the professional development world, depending on what state you're in, they may accept seat hours, they may want graduate credit hours, they may have their own state-based credits that you can only use in state. Can they keep track of the learning they're doing? Are there points where they can print out a certificate or have some documentation to go to their district or their state and say, this is my professional learning and this is what I've accomplished?
Yes, absolutely. There is a transcript that's created as you complete courses
Wonderful.
that you can download and use to support if your state accepts it,
Right.
support that. And then also there are certificates that you can download.
Which are always popular. People love to have their
Yes,
certificates. Um,
yes.
any thought, and this is an aside, and my guess is not, but just you've developed such a wonderful program. But I'm thinking of younger educators and how interested they are in micro-credentials and badges and things like that. Is there any foray into that yet on Cox Campus?
Not as of yet that I've been
Okay.
told,
Okay.
but the
Hey,
possibilities are endless,
yes,
with this type of content and format.
really is.
Yes.
I'm going to ask about this, and I'm not asking because I want you to get bogged down in a deep dive into this, but it was fascinating to me. If you could talk a little bit about the Wheel of Equitable Outcomes and how it drives the things that you're doing.
Yes. So the Wheel of Equitable Outcome has 6 key tenets,
Hmm.
pretty much. It dives into professional development, of
Hmm.
course, which, of course, speaks to where equipping teachers so that everything else can happen. Another element is coaching, instructional coaching support.
Right, right.
So that job embedded support for the initial professional development, culturally responsive practices, um, thinking from the perspective, I like to think about that as the whole child
Yes,
approach
yes,
aspect, considering a child in who they are in their totality and being
right.
responsive to that in the learning environment.
Yeah.
Um, then high quality instructional materials,
Hmm.
which is also another big $1 billion
Yeah,
business
it
that,
is.
frankly, educators have been at the mercy of publishers
Yep.
without a way to determine what's high quality. So
Yes.
that's essential for the work.
Yeah.
And then the multi-tiered system of support,
Yes.
ensuring that 80% or more of students are proficient or beyond proficient, are achieving at
Right.
the desired rate.
Yes.
Um, and the other thing that's important is the data and assessment piece,
Of course.
ensuring that we're using the data and assessment that's key to designing instruction that is culturally responsive, and that also helps to get us to where students need to be. So those are the
Fantastic.
6 elements, and they kind of frame our approach to the work.
Makes it very holistic. It
Hmm.
does. It fills in a lot of the gaps that you see in traditional approaches to PD. Um,
Yes.
you mentioned the coaching, and you did reference Jim Knight's impact cycle as what you base the coaching model on. Can you talk a little about if I'm sitting in Peoria, Illinois, and I'm really going to town on Cox Campus, and I would like to do some coaching, how does that come into play?
Yes. So we also have coaching courses
Okay.
on Cox Campus
Yeah.
that they're able to take that supports the Gym Night impact model.
Great.
It breaks a couple of the steps down into more minute or concise
Hmm.
steps,
Hmm.
but it's essentially the same concept.
Yeah.
Helping coaches to understand the cycle of learning that needs to take place in order to support teachers in transferring their knowledge to practice.
And coaching has become so popular. It's really become its own lane in education.
Yeah.
Um, well, let's talk a little more about Ramona. I've asked so many questions about the great work at Cox Campus, but I know you live more to the South Carolina side of the state, and you're in
Mhm.
schools. You're working with faculties. You're bringing in all this knowledge and understanding and expertise and helping schools to bring their program along. Talk about what you do, when you're out there on the ground in schools.
Absolutely. So, while the driving force is literacy,
Yeah.
part of my work also depends on systems that help to facilitate the implementation of best literacy practices.
Right.
And so, out right now, we're working with several districts across the state.
Hmm.
And one of the main drivers is we provide them with professional development that's aligned to the Cox Campus coursework. Um, we help them to design learning to take back into their schools, and then also connect that with action labs, whereby teachers take a particular practice, demonstrate it in front of their peers, get peer feedback, and the goal is to make that practice consistent and persistent
Hmm.
and pervasive within the schools. So I just visited a school today for
Okay.
and it's a newly started school that was a dream of the superintendent, a vision of his,
Wow.
and it was brought to life this year. And it is the first of its kind, I believe, here in the state of Georgia.
Hmm.
And they have, through very heavily resourced environment in terms of support for ESOL students, intervention support.
Yeah.
Um, they have really uh, dove into the work
Hmm.
with Cox Campus around the foundational skills. And
Yes.
by mid-year, even as early as mid-year, we've seen phenomenal growth.
Yeah.
And so that's the kind of work that I am privileged to support. Um, so my visit today, I was looking at the planning process.
Okay.
So, helping them to refine and streamline those processes so that the instruction is prescriptive and
Mhm.
it's intentional,
Yeah.
and data driven.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so that's what my work looks like. We also do site visits where we use coaching tools that are also aligned to the coursework on Cox Campus.
Yep.
Um, and it has specific practices there that we look for as we visit the classrooms once the knowledge has been redelivered and action labs have taken place. Yes, and so then we use that to continue the growth process. So we really promote that continuous improvement process in
Yes.
that way.
It's such rewarding work. I can only imagine how fulfilling it is for you to be able to see over time the progress that these schools are making based on what you're able to do with them.
Yes.
And you're just Ramona, you're just a fabulous ambassador for Cox Campus, whether it's on here or on the ground in a school. You just the passion you bring to the work and your conviction, your understanding of how important this work is in so many more ways than just literacy. It's futures. It's the future of our country. It's there's so many things at stake here, and just thank you for everything you do for education, for professionals who are hungry for the learning, and for children.
It is truly my passion and my privilege. I crossed state lines, so to speak, from South
Yes.
Carolina to Georgia, to seize this opportunity,
Yeah,
because I know what an impact literacy has had on my life.
right.
First generation to graduate college and get
Yeah,
advanced degrees.
yeah.
First teacher in my family,
Wow.
and I had a home where literacy, even though my mom was a high school graduate,
Yeah,
reading was just a part of the culture in our home. She was
right,
always reading the newspaper, right?
right.
We were reading the cereal boxes. Getting a library card was as exciting as going to, I don't know, an amusement park.
Right. Yeah.
And so teaching allows for me to sort of share some of those gifts that I got from reading early.
Well,
Yeah,
and I initially referenced the passion you have, but in just hearing you recount that, the pride, just the
yeah,
pride, and that says it all. So
yeah.
Cox Campus offering more than $140 million in free professional learning to educators. We're so thrilled to help you get the word out on this. Educators from across the country can come to the Cox Campus site and sign up, get an account, and jump right in.
And international.
Oh, yes, I don't mean to stop at the coast.
It's
At the international
worldwide.
boundaries. Thank you. Thank you. Well, Ramona, it's such a
Yes.
pleasure. So good to talk and catch up. And we'll get this recording out and continue to spread the word.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Walter. I really appreciate it.
Always a pleasure.